Hi, I've seen a lot of stuff about heaters and vehicles. Now, I'm going to show you electric heat. Now, this is a Patent 1500 watt space heater. It's a utility heater. Now, this has two settings, 1 and 2 for low and high. This has high fan here and high heat here. Alright, I believe this is heat 1 and 2. This should be the fan, I believe. I'm not sure. Or off and on. This uses more power than the HyperTough utility heater we have. Now, I have it hooked up to the batteries. I have been doing a little bit of testing today. This is not going to be about the batteries. This is going to be about, can you get heat in your vehicle for emergency if you're living in your vehicle without using gas or using some type of diesel, things like that. Can you use propane? Yes. You will have to carry canisters. You will have to make sure you have plenty of fuel if you need to make it through a winter night. Can you use butane? They sell small butane heaters. They don't put out a great amount of heat, but they will work in some cases to help keep you from freezing. Then again, there is also diesel heaters. I've seen several videos on diesel heaters where these heaters have broke down in the middle of the night. Thing about it is, can you use electric? Now, that's going to be determined by a couple factors. 1, the size of your inverter. 2, your car alternator. Now, I'm going to put this in my van shortly and do a test on this in the vehicle. I'm not sure if it will produce enough power to run this heater. That's what I'm testing. I also have another heater I'm going to be testing probably in a week or so. That's like 1,000 watts. Now, your alternator only produces so much power. So, if you're trying to run a heater like this and your inverter goes off, that heater is drawing too much power. Your alternator cannot keep up with the power requirements. I don't know if this is going to work or not. I haven't tried this yet, but I will be trying a little bit. Now, I've already ran this a few times, testing different things, testing different heaters. So my battery's at 12.7. Let's get it going. This is on heat 1. There's heat 2. There's a lot of heat coming out of here. The fan's blowing really good. Now look how fast that's dropping. Now watch what happens if I turn it off. So it did go down some, but not all the way. Okay. If you want to have emergency heat in a vehicle and you need to use electric heat, listen to me. Those little car heaters that you plug in your cigarette lighter are not going to work. The heaters that you run that are small, like 300, 350 watts, are not going to work. They don't draw enough current. They don't produce enough heat. A space heater like I had, not space heater, excuse me, a radiator heater like I have down here. It's like a 700 watts radiator heater. That is not going to work. Alright, so what do you need to run a heater in a vehicle? 1, you need cable. You need a shutoff. It needs to be inside your vehicle. The reason I'm saying that is because if you hook your inverter up outside, first, don't use the clips that come with your inverter. Always hardwire your inverter in. You will get a better contact, better power, better flow, less resistance. Second, you have to understand your alternator can only produce so much power. You will need your vehicle running. Can you get a heater to use in your vehicle in an emergency to run off your alternator? Yes, you can. All these heaters have different ratings as far as how much power they pull. All your inverters have different ratings. Now understand, your inverter, this shows 90% efficient. This inverter here, the white inverter I have, shows 80%. So if you get an inverter with 80%, let's take 100%, say 1,000 watts, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. All right. Now that's only valid for 80%. I'm going on the low end, just in case you get an inverter that has 80% efficiency. So out of 1,000 watts, you're getting 20, 40, 60, 80, or 800 watts, not 1,000 through that inverter. You're losing 20%. So this is a 1,500 watt pure sine wave inverter. The reason I'm using this one and not my white one, once again, this one does say 90% efficient. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I do know, in a bad situation, you know, having an emergency way to have power or heat, or just heat. I have watched several videos on YouTube. They're talking about these little bitty bullshit heaters this big. They're not going to keep you from freezing. Also, do not run a heater on a Jackery or some type of battery pack. It will just dry that battery dead very quickly, and you'll be without heat. To do this, you have to have your vehicle running. Like I say, I don't know if my van, it has a 90 amp alternator. I don't know if it will push enough watts to actually run this heater the way it's supposed to be ran with the efficiency rating of my inverter, which is 90%. I'm going to go by 80%. Now, can this keep you from freezing if it'll work in your vehicle? Yes. I also have a 1,000 watt heater. The highest it goes is 1,000 watts. But it's a quartz heater. It has no fan. Basically, it's radiant heat. I will test that at another time, but I will be testing this just to see if it'll run in my vehicle, which is a 90 amp alternator. I'm so sick and tired of seeing these people say, all right, use a power station with a 300 watt heater. You're gonna freeze to death. Don't do it. If you're using something like a Mr. Buddy heater or even a butane heater, you have to leave your windows open or cracked. And what's going to happen if you go to sleep in the middle of the night, that heater shuts down after 2 to 3 hours, maybe 4, depends on what you have the heat setting on, and your heater shuts down. Your windows are open. Your windows are cracked. All that cold air is coming in. That's a bad situation waiting to happen. So I want you to understand, I'm only doing this to see if it can work for people in a situation. With the weather like it is today in a lot of states, people are, you know, without power. People are suffering. They're freezing. The mail's not moving. A lot of things aren't happening these days with massive cold fronts, blizzards coming through, things like that. Can you stay warm in your vehicle? That's the question. The answer is depends. It depends on the size of the alternator you have. Depends on how much fuel you have in your vehicle. It depends on if you have an inverter wired up. Here's the problem you're going to run into. If you just hook an inverter up to your car under your hood, even if you have the alternator power, as long as the car or van or truck is running, if your alternator produces enough power, that's great, that's fine. But as soon as you shut that ignition off, your inverter is still going to draw power. It is going to slowly pull power out of your battery. Your inverter is still going to use power. So you have to understand that. There is snow on the ground. I don't know if you can see it all out there, but give me a night in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wait. Probably I might do this tonight. I don't know. It's getting a little dark out. If I do the test tonight, then I'll show it. I'll merge the videos and then upload it tonight. Then again, I may wait till tomorrow to do the test so you can see more clearly. Like I said, I don't know if my alternator will produce enough power to run something like this. I have no idea. But there are heaters you can buy. They're like 1,000 watt. These are high on the max, 1,000 watt. They're no higher than 1,000 watt. Most 90 amp alternators will produce more power than 1,000 watt without an issue. And those heaters have 3 settings, low, medium, and high. I'll get to that another time. This is the heater I want to talk about. I'm going to do a test. Here's the thing, even if this heater is on low, it pulls a great deal of power. If my alternator can produce enough power to run this is the heater that I have that uses the most power. If it'll run this heater, it will run the Hyper-Tough utility heater as well. Now, even on low heat, this uses a great deal of power. But on low heat, the fan and heat is not as much. But I want you to think about how big of a room something like this will actually heat up. Something like this will keep you from freezing. Alright, let me go. Anyway, I wanted you to see what I'm doing. I just wanted to test it on my batteries here, and I have to charge my batteries up. They are at 12.7 right now. So yeah, I need to get them up on charge. Remember, if you're going to try to do something like this, make sure your alternator can produce enough power. I don't know if mine can. It's only 90 amp. And if it can't produce enough power, what's going to happen is most likely it's going to power this on, the inverter's going to shut off and go beep. That's most likely what's going to happen. If it can power this of my vehicle, this is one way that you can 100% be able to survive in a bad situation. Remember, your alternator has a lot to do with it. You have to have your inverter where you can get to it, because if it's hooked up outside and you heat up inside, once you open that door, you lose all your heat. It has to be strong enough to carry the wattage and amperage. This inverter goes anywhere from, I believe, 11 amps to 20 amps. I believe it says it can go up to. I don't know. So anyway, I'm fixing to go, and I will be doing that test. Maybe now. It's getting a little dark out, or tomorrow at the latest. All right, I will be back whenever I get the other part of the video going. Bye. Okay, I'm out my van. You can see there's snow everywhere. I have the light on too. That's drawing power. Let's see if my alternator can kick out enough power. Now this is sitting at an angle, so I don't know how well it's going to work. You can see the alternator power. This is on low, heat 1. It is producing heat. There we go. Hear it? Give it a little gas here. Excuse me. Okay, so this is just a little bit too much power from my 90 amp alternator. Unless I give it a little bit of fuel, give it a little fuel, it's running just fine. Let's put this on 2, which is high heat. Now the thing is, this is running just fine if I give it a little gas. This will put out a lot of heat. Now, it is pulling. And I can definitely feel the heat. All right, so let's put this down low on 1, the low heat. You can see the difference between high and low heat. All right, so in a bad situation, an emergency, can you use an electric heater? Yes. Now remember, this heater is the strongest heater I have, and it kicks out around 1300 something watts, almost 12 amps, I believe. My HyperTough heater kicks out 10.6 amps, and I believe it's around 1220 watts, something like that. Now you can hear the fan from the inverter. Now if I turn the light off, it would actually get more power there. This is definitely putting out heat. All right, let's turn this off and get this going. I want this to charge up. All right, now you can see it's back up. In an emergency situation, or if you're living in a vehicle, listen, you have to have a backup way to have heat. Now, I do have everything wired into my vehicle with a shutoff, right? So, if you have to do this under your hood, remember that even if you shut your vehicle off, the inverter's going to be pulling power. Let's shut this off here. Now this is a 1500 watt pure sine wave inverter heater. The inverter itself is plenty to carry this heater. What's not is the alternator, especially on idle. All right, if you need emergency heat, a heater like this will work as long as it doesn't go over, I'd say 1400 watts, 1350, 1400 watts. But listen to me, you're going to be limited on the power your alternator kicks out. Okay? That's what you have to worry about. Your alternator itself has to kick out enough power. You're not going to do this on a 50 amp alternator. All right? Now, I have talked about the small heaters. You know, they're the kind of plug in with something like this. Those will not work for you in a situation. Always have a backup way to have heat in a bad situation. Like I said, I have a 1000 watt heater that once I clean all this mess up in here and get all this out of the way, I will be testing that in here. That will pull a lot less power but it's a quartz radiant heater. It will pull a lot less power, so it shouldn't drive your alternator as much. But in an emergency situation, I'm sorry, I've watched too many people on YouTube with those diesel heaters that have literally broke down. They had to tear them apart, clean them, try to fix them. They got stopped up, and you have to carry all this extra fuel with you for your diesel heater. If you don't have a diesel, especially, you still have to carry fuel. I have seen people with little 500-watt heaters. Those are not going to work. Something this size should heat up your vehicle. Now remember, my vehicle's pretty much empty, except for a bunch of junk in here and some tools. Most people that are in their vehicle have things like cabinets, drawers, things like that, a bunch of totes, stuff like that, holding clothes or whatever in their vehicle. That takes up room. That takes up some cubic feet in your vehicle. Now, what I'm going to do is, because I want to make sure this battery's fully charged, I'm going to let it run for about 20 minutes. Once you warm your vehicle up, this is important. Once you warm your vehicle up, turn the heater off, turn the inverter off. Remember, this inverter's still going to be pulling power. And if it's outside under your hood or outside somewhere, you will have to open your door to get to your inverter, and you're going to lose your heat. So it's important you have things either wired up to where you can run inside, like I do here, with a shut-off, or you have an extra way to jump start your vehicle if your battery goes down too much because of the draw from the inverter. Excuse me. As you can tell, my battery's already pretty high, but I want you to understand, you have to get, even in a 90 amp alternator, I have to give this some fuel to keep the battery from going down as much. I have to give it some fuel to keep this heater running because it draws so much power. But it will do it. In a bad situation where you have no propane, no butane, if you have a small butane heater, if you have no, diesel, if you have a diesel heater, and you're in a situation where you need heat, yeah, it's going to use some gas, but it'll use it out of your tank. You won't have to get out of your vehicle if you have it wired inside. It won't, you won't have to get out of your vehicle. You won't have to leave your windows down or cracked. You won't have to do that like you would with some type of propane or butane. This is just for an emergency. I do not want people hooking up, saying, okay, I have electric heat in my vehicle now if I need it, and then just relying on this, because heaters can give out, they can go out, your inverter can go out. But in a situation where you have to have heat, this is one way to get heat, especially if you already have an inverter installed, like with solar. All you have to do is make sure your inverter is large enough, and you have to make sure your batteries are connected to your alternator to where the alternator can send power to your batteries. If your alternator is large enough, if this was a 120 amp alternator, then I would not have to rev up the gas. This is a 90 amp. This is the lowest end that they made for these vans, which is 90 amp. They also made 120 amp. If it was 120 amp in here, I would not need to rev up the fuel to keep the battery from drawing down. Now let's see what this says. Oh, duh, I turned it off. Ready? A 120 volt, 14.2 amps is what's coming off my alternator. If you have AGM batteries, remember, I'd say anywhere from 14.5 to 15, maybe higher, can destroy your AGM batteries. If you have regular dual cycle lead acid batteries, they do emit, off gas. If you have lithium batteries, you need specific hardware to run lithium. And once again, there is snow everywhere. It is downright cold. Some people will say just run your heater on your vehicle, but I'm sorry, the heater on my vehicle, on my van, is not going to heat this whole van. It will not. I mean, it does an excellent job with the front seats here. It really does. But anything behind the front seats is not going to heat that up. Understand that. I am making this video to show people in an emergency situation you can use electric heat. But remember, this requires a lot of power. A patent heater uses more power. I have tested this on my kilowatt meter. I do not have a kilowatt meter. I have a cheap generic one. But I tested it. This actually uses more power than my Hyper Tough heater from Walmart. So I wanted to see if this could run, because every different heater you buy will have different power requirements. Alright, let's turn this off again. Turn that off. See, right now, there's no power going to this inverter, none. Let me drain that. Because I have it turned off here at the shutoff. So understand this. In a situation, if your alternator's strong enough, or, even in the 90 amp alternator, a heater this size that draws this much power, you will have to get a little bit of gas for it not to pull your battery down. You need to keep it above 12.2, 12.4, 12.6. But if you're freezing and you can slap an electric heater in your vehicle and run that and warm up your vehicle, and you just have to give your gas a little bit of gas down here, your motor a little bit of gas to get your alternator kicking high enough, that's what you have to do. I'm so sick of seeing these people on YouTube saying buy a little bitty heater, a 300 watt heater, a 500 watt heater. Those are not strong enough to heat this large of a space. I am in my van. It's not large enough. This is large enough. If you can keep it going, this is large enough. A heater this size, right here, will actually heat our apartment. So I know it would heat something this size. But before you rely on your alternator, listen, have an extra alternator. If you're going to be relying on your alternator full time, have an extra alternator, know how to replace it. If possible, get a stronger alternator. That way there's less wear and tear on it. But can you use electric heat in a vehicle? The answer is yes. But can you warm up your vehicle with electric heat? That's a trick question, because any heater under 1,000 watts is not going to warm up a vehicle this size. Like I said, I will do a test with my 1,000 watt heater another day, because it's already dark outside and I got to unhook this stuff and get it back in the house. But can you do it? Yes. You saw it run yourself. I hate doing this again, because that means I just have to sit out here longer. Now I'm going to give it some gas. Now you heard it beep when I shut the heater off. That's not a big deal. You can see right there, I did give it some extra power because this pulls so much power. Your inverter, your wires, your alternator all have something to do with this. How much power your heater takes has something to do with it. Then I shut that off. In a bad situation, you can use a space heater or utility heater. Depending on how much it pulls, size of your alternator, if you're willing to rev up your gas enough. Now the thing is, you just have to keep your foot on the gas enough to where it warms up the inside of your vehicle, especially if you're going to be bundled up when you go to sleep. Or if you want to use some type of other heater at night. Let's say I had propane or butane I wanted to use, or a diesel heater. I can warm my vehicle up with the electric heat. Once I turn it off, I can turn on the other heater, let this run a little bit, 10-15 minutes, let it charge back up while the other heater's keeping the heat in play, keeping the heat there. And then once you go to bed, that heater will shut off after 2 or 3 hours, however many hours it'll run. That'll hopefully get you through a lot of the night, because then you won't have to be using that fuel to heat your vehicle in the first place. Alright, I'm fixing to go. This is going to be a long video. Once again, your power inverter has to be large enough. This is a 1500 watt pure sine wave inverter. It handles about issue. Your alternator has to be large enough, and sometimes you will have to get some gas to make sure your heater will work properly. Depends on how much power your heater pulls. Anyway, that's it. I'm fixing to go. I gotta get all this unhooked and in the house, and it is like ice and snow everywhere. Anyway, everyone have a good day or night. Bye.